Let's answer the question, do you always have to tell the truth? One of the first things that we teach our kids is tell the truth, don't be a liar. God is an honest God. He speaks the truth, and so we would assume that God always wants his people to tell the truth. Well, there's three things we need to consider here. First, lying is wrong. The Bible makes it pretty clear that it's wrong for us to lie. God built do not lie into the Ten Commandments, and Proverbs 12:22 says, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who tell the truth. It says pretty clearly there that God doesn't appreciate lying. He doesn't like lying. There are many other Bible verses that talk about the fact that God doesn't want his people to lie. He wants them to tell the truth. But a second thing we find in the Bible is that killing innocent people is worse than lying. Now you might be wondering why that's a point here, but this actually comes up in a story in the Bible in Exodus 1. At this point, God's people were enslaved in Egypt, and Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, wanted some population control over the Israelites, so he said this, chapter 1, verse 15 of Exodus, then Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. So Pharaoh said, if anybody delivers a boy, you need to kill the boy. But these were Hebrew midwives. They believed in God. Verse 18, so the king of Egypt called for the midwives. Why have you done this? He demanded. Why have you allowed the boys to live? Now, based on the first point, and what we read in Proverbs 12, we might expect the Hebrew midwives to say, well, we don't want to obey your law. We think it's a terrible law, and we're just not going to follow it. But look what they say, verse 19. The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, the midwives replied. They were more vigorous and have their babies so quickly that we can't get there in time. In other words, they lied. They made up some story about the fact that Hebrew women have children too quickly and they don't have time to kill them. They told a lie to protect innocent lives. And look at God's response, verse 20. So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. God was okay with the midwives' lie because killing innocent people is much worse than lying, even though both are wrong. And so what all this teaches us is that in a sinful world, we may have to choose the lesser of two evils. God doesn't want us to lie, but in a broken world, lying might be our best option. We see this illustrated in the story of Rahab. Rahab was a woman who lived in Jericho, and she hid 2 spies of Israel who were in the land. The king of Jericho said, give us the spies. But here's what Rahab said. Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left the town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them. Verse 6, actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath bundles of flax she had laid out. In other words, Rahab lied. She lied to the officials, and she said, these guys aren't here, but in fact they were. She hid them. And guess what? Rahab is held up in the New Testament as an example of faith. So yes, lying is wrong, but in a broken, fallen, sinful world, sometimes as Christians, we might have to choose the lesser of two evils. Understand we're talking about extreme situations here. This doesn't mean that you can lie on your taxes or lie to your spouse or just lie whenever it's more convenient than telling the truth. But we do live in a sinful world, and sometimes we'll be forced to choose the lesser of two evils. Now go ahead and pause this video and discuss some of these questions.